Hello YouTube, Mr. Max here. Today we will be asking the question, what if every Pokemon region had a normal type gym leader? Now the normal typing is generally considered a fairly boring, standard, kind of weak type. Yes, it only has the one weakness, but doesn't hit anything for super effective damage. So people just tend to kind of write it off when team building. But I'm here today to actually highlight a lot of the really cool, really good normal types across the entire franchise by creating new normal type gym leaders in every single region. So, starting with the criteria for how I develop these teams, the gym leader team and position will be chosen based on the normal Pokemon native to the region. So I'll be zeroing in on the normal types introduced in that region and making a team based on those. And I'll specifically say where in the region I think that gym should go. A lot of videos like this, they'll pick the 4 or 5 best Pokemon of any given type, say, oh, that's the eighth gym, and you can work backwards from there. I like making choices. However, with this video specifically, I kind of wanted to challenge myself in two different ways. One, I wanted specifically to try to make as many Pokemon that were not pure normal as possible. It wasn't a hard rule, but just, where possible, where it made sense based on the team comp. I wanted to spotlight just the fact that, you know, yes, there's a bunch of normal types, but also a lot of normal types that are a bunch of various different types that just have a lot of coverage. But also, I wanted to spotlight the fact that there are a lot of really good normal types out there. So I wanted to make as many later gym teams as possible. But if any instances where I did make any gyms that were R7 or 8, I also made one that is earlier as well, just to keep myself creative and also just to help represent the amount of really good normal types that do exist. Second, I'll be using the version of the region with the most options, Platinum for Sinnoh, Black and White 2 for Unova, etc. I will not be reusing aces of any canon normal type gym leaders or Elite Four members in the region unless necessary. However, Pokemon from all other major trainers are fair game. So, for example, Whitney's Miltank would not be on the team in Johto, but Heliolisk would be a potential option for a Pokemon on the Kalos team, even though Heliolisk was the ace of the Electric Gym. Because it is part normal, it can be on that team in Kalos. And lastly, the gym leader's overall strength will be based on the canon gym leaders of the region in question, if not slightly stronger. So the average base stat total of any given gym position will be relatively similar to that of the one that's actually in the games. And when it comes to gyms like from Gen 5 and 6 that only cap at 3 Pokemon, I might give them an extra Pokemon or two just to make them feel a little more challenging. But that'll be by case basis. Starting off with Kanto. And Kanto, as I've actually mentioned a couple of times in other videos as well, it is shocking to me that there wasn't a normal specialist throughout the entire game, considering just how many stellar and cool and powerful normal types there are in this game. We had a ghost Elite Four member, despite there only being one viable ghost option, but there's like upwards of 12 good normal types to pull from, and they just didn't use hardly any of them throughout normal gameplay. So I wanted to highlight as many as possible by making 3 different teams, one in the early game, one in the mid game, and one in the late game. So first, the one in the early game, I think it works for the third gym with Jigglypuff, Pidgeotto, and Chansey as the ace. So I like the first two. They're both Pokemon that, given modern mechanics, they're both Pokemon that are not weak to fighting and also are super effective against fightings. I don't necessarily think Jigglypuff would know any fairy moves that early in the game, but it still wouldn't die from a single karate chop or whatever fighting move. But Pidgeotto definitely would help with his flying step. And then Chansey, I think works so well as the ace of an earlier gym because unless you have a particularly strong fighting move, you're probably not going to be able to one-shot it. Even a good physical move, just in general, it's going to be very hard to take this thing down, especially when it knows soft boil to heal back up any damage it takes. It could potentially use Sing, to just to be annoying. Yes, it can't really hurt you with stuff like double slap or even egg bomb. If it had that, that wouldn't do much damage with its 5 base attack stat. But if it had some kind of special move like hyper voice or flamethrower, even that early, I think with a 35 base special attack, I don't think that'll be like the most devastating thing. Or even something kind of funky like seismic toss in any given Gen 1 game where seismic toss would be available. I think giving it here to deal 24, 26, whatever level the Chansey is, just say consistent damage over time, again, while it's healing up health, while it's putting you to sleep. I think this could potentially be if not challenging, just a very annoying ace of a third gym. But I also made one that is the fifth gym with Porygon, Fearow, Persian, and Kangaskhan. I wanted Porygon here just to have a Pokemon that is more specially oriented, despite it having Sharpen as its one of its signature moves. Its special attack is so much better. It learns a lot more better special attack. So I wanted to put him here, with it knowing Psybeam and other moves that just have good coverage. Fearow, one another flying Pokemon to deal with the fighting types. And then Persian and Kangaskhan. There's just something kind of fun to me about this trainer having both of the normal types that Giovanni uses when he fight him in his mid game fights, with Kangaskhan being the actual ace. Um, I could easily hear an argument for someone like a Persian being the ace of that third gym that I just had. I could kind of mirror Raichu as Lieutenant Surge's normal ace. Obviously, their base stat totals aren't exactly the same, but Meowth and Pikachu have that are kind of seen as parallels. Uh, since Persian really only needs its attack and speed, I could see it working as a third gem ace, but I think it also works here as well. And then Kangaskhan just is one of those Pokemon that just I think it deserved to be the ace of somebody at some point, and it just kind of never was. So I think it works here as the fifth gem. But I did make one more as the eighth gem to bring in a few more, at least if not like good, just fun Kanto normal types with Lickitung, Dodrio, Chansey, Kangaskhan, and now Tauros as the ace. I like this team a lot for many reasons, but first, I didn't use Snorlax specifically because I felt a little weird about this gym leader having something that's, a static encounter like Snorlax. If it were a Elite Four member or champion, I would feel much better about Snorlax being an option there. But I think Tauros works perfectly fine as an ace. It is really good at what it does. It has really high, at least I think it has like about 490, like around there based on total. Considering Giovanni's Rhydon also had around that, I think it works very well as an ace, especially if this were in Generation 1 specifically, where if this Tauros knew Hyper Beam, like with how fast it is, with how high its crit chance is, this could be a pretty devastating team overall. But I also just like this team as a whole because I like the idea of this tamer character exclusively having Pokemon that are found in Safari Zone. Lickitung is found in the Kanto Safari Zone in yellow. Doduo at least is found other places, but also in Safari Zone. And then Chansey, Kangaskhan, and Tauros are found exclusively there. So I just like the reference to all of these Pokemon being all in normal types found in the Safari Zone. I think that's a lot of fun. Now for Johto, another one that absolutely deserves an eighth gym position. I like Whitney's team. I think it is really good for that point in the game. I've always been a little annoyed that Clefairy took away a spot from someone like a Snubble, or even Dunsparce, or Apom, or someone who's weaker but definitely not ace potential. But I think Clefairy still fits her vibe well, so I'm not too mad about it. But considering just how many other fantastic normal types there are in this game, it's honestly criminal that there wasn't a later game normal gym or Elite Four member, especially since we already had overlap with the fighting Elite Four member. You easily could have an Elite Four member with like at the time Ursaring, Ramble, Blissey, Porygon 2, and something else. But because I'm using modern mechanics, I'm not putting Ramble on this team. I think Ramble easily should have a place here, but because Granville is pure fairy now, I'm switching it out with Wigglytuff, who does evolve from a Gen 2 Pokemon in Igglybuff. So Wigglytuff, Blissey, Porygon 2, and Ursaring as the ace. But I also made one that is the fourth gym with Smeargle, Dunsparce, Stantler, and Girafarig. Just something fun about her team just being full of a bunch of weirdos. Like dealer's choice about what the Smeargle knows. It could know a bunch of coverage moves. It could know a bunch of status moves, setup, just one hit KO moves if you're feeling crazy. Like it can know literally anything, any combination of sleep inducing moves. Like it can set up spikes. It can do literally anything. So it won't really hurt very hard, but it can add a lot of just it can do a lot of things for the team. It can set up dual screens. You can use Destiny Bond. Just I think I assume Destiny Bond could work somehow. Never really like thought about it until I just said it right now, but I assume there's is a way for Smeargle to get Destiny Bond somehow. But regardless, it can do a lot of things. And then Dunsparce and Stantler just being two other normal types that are just kind of weird, but like I think they have this charm to them that clearly Game Freak acknowledged later when they gave them both evolutions later down the line. And then Girafarig for the fighting neutrality, being able to you blow through her team with a good fighting move or fighting type, and then Girafarig won't be taken out by fighting moves, and then will be able to you know deal with your fighting types much easier than the rest of them. Moving over to Hoenn, this one is the sixth gym with Swellow, Girafarig, Zangoose, and Explode. Now, Explode is one of those Pokemon that I really, really like. However, I guarantee if Explode were made now, its stat distribution would be completely different. This thing would have at least 510 base stat total, if not higher. It would be completely min-max with its special attack being at least 110, over 100, maybe 110, 20 HP, and have like just okay attack and speed and then pretty decent bulk. But how it is right now, because it was in Gen 3 and for some reason there were just a lot of Gen 3 Pokemon that were hindered by the physical special split not being a thing yet. So they made a bunch of different Pokemon have like okay attack and speed. So because attack and special attack. So because both those stats were like kind of good, the rest of the stats kind of fumble because of it. Like Seviper, Camera, Cacturn. There's a lot of Huntail even. Like there's a lot of Pokemon out there from Gen 3 that kind of suffer from this. And Explode is one of those where like because power creep wasn't really a thing yet, they capped out at 490, I think. Um, it's both its attacking stats are only 90. And I understand that at the time, normal moves were all physical, so you wanted to be able to make the most use out of Hyper Voice, but you also wanted to, thematically make sense for it to use moves like Flamethrower or Ice Beam and whatever. But nowadays, with it basically only running special moves, I feel like it would work a lot better with way higher special attack. But regardless, in Kanto, sorry, in Hoenn as it is, Explode would absolutely work as the ace here. But I think the other Pokemon really help round out this team. I like Swellow, being that part flying. Giraffrig, I like this here. A to also help with the fighting weakness, but also to kind of mirror the fact that Winona's team typically in this sixth gen gem spot would have a Skarmory who is a Gen 2 Pokemon, so I like Giraffrig here. And then Zangoose just has another really cool normal type from Gen 3 that didn't really get the spotlight anywhere. So here you go. But I also did make one that is earlier as well. I have kind of fallen into a rut of making a bunch of sixth gem teams for Hoenn, so I wanted one that is not sixth gem. So I made one that is the third gem with Spinda, Kecleon, and Zangoose. All of these are pure normal, but I like the idea of Kecleon not always being a normal type. And then, yeah, Spinda, you wouldn't really have a chance to see a Spinda yet, since the first time you see Spinda is after the third gem town. And also uh it can learn some coverage moves like psychic and mess you up with a teeter dance and hypnosis, and just add a nice support for the team. But also so can Kecleon. So if you do hit it with a psychic move, it can then respond with stab side beams. And then Zangoose, kind of like Kangaskhan, is another Pokemon that I think really does work as an ace kind of earlier in the region. Now for Sinnoh, again, made one that is the eighth gem with Ambipom, Blissey, Lickilicky, and Porygon Z. This is another region that is absolutely baffling to me why there wasn't a normal specialist in this region. I kind of know why, because because as it was, how the Pokedex was in Gen 4, Lickilicky and Porygon Z weren't technically options because of the way the Diamond and Pearl Pokedex was set up. They, yeah, they were only available in the post game for some reason. Ambipom could work. You also have stuff like Lopunny. There are other normal types that you could have used for an earlier gym, but if if all the normal types in the Sinnoh Pokedex were available, I like this a lot. I like this a lot for a reason similar to the flying team I made a couple of videos back, where all of those Pokemon were somehow associated with previous gen Pokemon. I looked at this here too, where Ambipom, Lickilicky, and Porygon Z are all evolutions of previous gen Pokemon, and then Blissey is a previous gen Pokemon that evolves from a Gen 4 Pokemon. So I don't know, I just like the way that theming for this team. But it also made one that is the second gem with Glameow, Chatot, and Lopunny, especially with this beauty class character that I picked for the sprite here. This team just fits her very well. I think Lopunny works well as an ace of a second gym. I wouldn't really think it would work as ace anything past the third gym. Even that might be pushing it a little bit. But for the second gym, I think it can work well, especially if you do fun shenanigans with its Klutz ability, like it could use Switcheroo to give you a Flame Orb or some other hindering item. And then I feel like Lamiao and Chatot also kind of work well with her aesthetic. But I think a Pokemon that could work even better with her aesthetic is if this Pokemon were still normal. I think Togetic would work very well here, especially since it evolves into a Gen 4 Pokemon while also having that flying typing to help with fighting coverage. Now for Unova, I like Lenora. I like her design. I've never loved her team at all. I just felt like Watchog always was a very underwhelming ace. I think there were a lot of other normal types in Gen 5 that could have worked a lot better. And I think because she was so early, it I think there is a lot of ammo for normal types in Gen 5 to work well as a later gym team, especially since the TM that she gives you is the move Retaliate, which does extra damage at the turn after you've knocked out one of her team. So the fact that her main purpose is to showcase this move, she can only really use it the one time. She's not going to revive her herdier. So her watch hog is only going to be able to use it on the first turn. And if it decides to do something else, then it's not even going to make use of it. So my basically the goal of this entire video, like the reason I'm making this video is specifically to give Unova an eighth gym with at least four Pokemon so they can actually utilize Retaliate effectively. So here's the eighth gym with a bunch of just very strong, very high attack power normal types with Stoutland, Sawsbuck, Braviary, Bouffalant. And this Bouffalant is holding the normal gym. I've said in all these videos that I really do feel like if Game Freak had the idea to have battle gimmicks one gen earlier, they absolutely would have given all of the gym leaders and probably only four members these type boosting gyms of their types. But a buffed retaliate, with 140 base power retaliate, assuming after you knock out Braviary, with that gym boosted from a Bouffalant will do just absolutely massive amounts of damage. So I just really like how this team came together. But I still need one that is the fourth gym with Audino, Rufflet, and Cinccino. I think Cinccino absolutely should have taken the place of Watchog on Lenore's team. I think even Bouffalant wouldn't necessarily be too strong at that point. If they give it like an appropriate move set, and also especially considering you can catch fighting types, right next door, I don't think it would be too big of an ask for you to take down a Bouffalant, especially considering something like Starmie has even a higher base stat total than Bouffalant, also in a second gym position. But regardless, Cinccino also could work very well in an earlier gym ace. But the reason I specifically wanted Cinccino here is I didn't know this when starting this entire video process, but someone told me in the comments of my Steel video that when a multi-hit attack is used and it is boosted by a type boosting gem, every single hit of that move will be boosted by that gem. So if this Cinccino uses Tail Slap, and that Tail Slap is enhanced by either Technician or Skill Link, either way, every single hit of Tail Slap will be enhanced. So it can either already be boosted by Technician and then hit up to 5 times boosted by that gem, or it can just be a guaranteed 5 a hit boosted by that gem. Either way, I think just the novelty of that, kind of trumps the my feelings towards needing to retaliate a bunch of times. The Rufflet can still know retaliate, Cinccino can still know the move retaliate, but having the option to hit tail slap that many times with it having that boost, I think it's a lot of fun. Now for Kalos, we're starting off with the second gem here with Litleo, Helioptile, and Furfrou. It's kind of weird, I think, that there wasn't like a major trainer in this way that used Furfrou. It just had such a presence in this generation that I'm kind of surprised it wasn't an ace of an early gym or like major trainer like that. And ideally, the Furfrou would have one of its unique haircut designs, but the program I used to make this team only had this one Furfrou model available. But I think it would make perfect sense for Furfrou to be the ace and have one of the more unique designs to it. But just like with every Kalos team, I like to make one that has a mega evolution with it. So one that's the eighth gym, now with this Pokemon Ranger female model here, with Furfrou, Heliolisk, Mega Kangaskhan, and Pyroar as the ace. Yeah, this just feels like a really good team for a normal type in Kalos. Like Mega's Kangaskhan is kind of one of those Pokemon that honestly might be too good even for an eighth gym leader, but there weren't really many other normal type options available. So with only being four Pokemon here, I think it's fine. Now for Alola, now Alola typically doesn't have normal or doesn't have gym leaders in general, but I based this around just other trainers in the region, just other trainers, other like gym leader average strength based on other regions as well. So I made one that is the seventh gym here with Komala, Drampa, Oranguru, and Beware. Now I kind of went back and forth about if I wanted Drampa or Toucannon here. I could kind of go either way. With Drampa here, I could hear an argument for this being the eighth gem. Um, I just wasn't exactly sure if between seventh or eighth. Beware is the only Pokemon here that even has that has 500 or higher base stat total, and it has right at 500. Drampa and Oranguru have like around 485, 490, somewhere around there, and Komala has 465, I think. So with Komala anchoring it just a little bit, it still has a really high attack stat, but with pretty low bulk, I think this being the seventh gym works fine enough, but I can easily hear an argument for it being eighth. With Toucannon, it would definitely work as the seventh or even maybe even sixth, maybe. But considering, I don't know, I don't usually uh base these off of the character model that I pick here, but because I went with this elder gentleman type character, Drampa and Oranguru just fit him very well. I was gonna leave it there, but kind of late in the development of this presentation, I kind of realized that in previous videos, I have made it so that major trainers throughout the journey of Alola, I have kind of incorporated them into gym leader positions. So I thought I would do that here as well by making Gladion a gym leader. Now, for the record, I did make Guzma the eighth gym in the bug video, the previous video. You can adjust his team slightly to make him the seventh gem, or Gladion just trumps him, or whatever. But regardless, I think Gladion would work very well as an eighth gym leader with Wigglytuff, Lopunny, Porygon Z, and Silvally. A couple of kind of neat things about this team. I like the idea of Wigglytuff and Lopunny being here because they both kind of represent other members of his family. Actually, Porygon Z does as well, to an extent, because Wigglytuff kind of represents Lily, since she specializes in fairy types. Lopunny represents his mom, Lucamine, who actually has a Lopunny in one of her teams. And then Porygon Z, it kind of implied that Mon, like when you go to the archipelago or the Pokepelago, you're like teleported like into a digital space or something. It's it's a little like I could be misremembering that, but regardless of if that's the case, Porygon Z and Silvally are both on Gladion's team in Ultra Sun and Moon, so I think they both work well here. And unfortunately, Silvally's whole gimmick is that it has these like memory disks that let it change its type with this RKS system ability, and it being the ace of a normal gym, it can't do that. But it's still a very powerful Pokemon that I think, you know, yeah, considering, there are um like considering it is the only Alola Pokemon on this team, considering it is Gladion's typical ace. Gladion literally already has uh two normal types on one of his rival teams. I think it can work as an ace here. And then maybe in a rematch or post game rematch or something, maybe then they can switch it up and have him give him a tight memory to match your starter. But for the initial fight, it can just be normal. I think that's fine. But I did also create another team because on this team here, Wigglytuff, Lopunny, and Silvally, all three of them at some point in their evolutionary stage, they all evolve with friendship. And Gladion's team typically has a theme of evolving with friendship. Crobat, Lucario, and Silvally all evolve with friendship. So I think it'd be fun if his entire team is normal types that evolve with friendship. So I also add a Snorlax here. I could easily hear an argument for Snorlax making this team a little too strong. I could definitely agree with that. But to fit the theme of friendship evolutions, I like it here. I like the Porygon Z team a little more just because Porygon Z being more of a special attacker could help round out the coverage of the team. But Snorlax fitting, I think works well as well. Yeah. Now for Galar, first we have the second gym here with Galarian Zigzagoon, Tranquil, and Double. Now, Double is one of those Pokemon that I'm honestly kind of surprised didn't get a Gigantamax form, but because it is one of the most prominent normal types in the region, it just, I think just represents the region as a whole very well. And it's base stats and just what it does works, I think works well as an early gym ace. Since the second gym is the latest gym that doesn't have a Gigantamax Pokemon, he can, Gigantamax it or a Dynamax it into a really big double. And I threw Tranquil on here just because I hadn't used anyone from that line yet. There weren't really many other lower level normal types to pick from that were unique to Galar. So, Tranquil, why not? But I did also create a team that is the eighth gym with Obstagoon, Indeedee, Dubwool, and Gmax Snorlax. Gmax Snorlax is the only normal type from all of Galar that I could tell that has a Gigantamax form. I definitely prefer this team with the Tranquil and a Galarian Zigzagoon, but I wanted to represent that, Obstagoon is also a normal type, and then Indeedee is a psychic normal type that can again help with the fighting weakness. If any other actual Galarian Pokemon could Gigantamax, I would definitely feel more confident making this an eighth gem. But because that isn't the case, this team with Double as the ace, I like a lot more. Now for Paldea, for these gems here, I like to make three different teams at least. One to represent how, or all three teams to represent the different ways terrestrialization can be used. One to represent Pokemon of your type, terrestrializing into your type to make those moves even stronger. One to make it a Pokemon of your type, terrestrializes into a different type to help either defensively or offensively. And then third, have it be a Pokemon not of their type terrestrialized into your type to kind of either fit a theme or strategy similar to Sudowoodo or Mismagius. So first of all, I picked one that is the third gym with Squawkabilly, Grafaiai, and Mousehold. Now, this might be a little too strong, and I completely understand if that is the case, but I just really like the idea of Mousehold terrestrializing into a normal type and then using population bomb to hit, upwards of 10 times with absolutely insane output. Now, I think it's fine because Mousehold's base attack isn't that high. It's definitely a lot lower than Miss Magius's base special attack, and that that Pokemon even has a move that boosts its special attack and Charge Beam, and also has Hex that has a chance to double its attack power when hit you with Confusion. And she actually has four Pokemon on the Paldea typical third gem. So considering, Squawkabilly isn't the greatest Pokemon for Fire also doesn't have that fighting weakness, but you could potentially mess you up with its poison touch ability, maybe even prankster if they want to use this hidden ability there. Um, but it's still only three Pokemon here. I think I think they could get away um with having that terrestrialized population bomb, especially since I believe it is in Levincia, the town that this gym takes place in. That is the town that you get that trade for a Haunter that evolves into a Gengar. So you would get an immunity here. If that isn't where that is, which I'm pretty sure it is, if not, there can just be a trade for like, a Knackley or some other fighting or some, well, yeah, fighting or a steel or other ghost type that could help handle this. But for the one that specializes into a different type, I made the eighth gym because there just are a lot of really good normal types in this region. Grafaiai, Cyclizar, Arboliva, and Dunsparce, who specializes into a ghost type. There you just completely get rid of its fighting weakness. Now you're only going to be weak to Ghost and Dark, and you're not really going to think to bring a lot of Ghost moves to a normal gym. Plus, the Dunsparce can use Shadow Ball. This could even be a Calm Mind setup with Shadow Ball, Ancient Power, Hyper Voice, or Earth Power, or some other coverage move instead of Ancient Power. So yeah, I think that would work very well. Um, Cyclozark should probably go the front. I kind of went back and forth on that. Um, the only thing I could really think is if Cyclozar baton passed a shell, passed a shell shed tail to the Dunsparce, but that could happen at any point. It doesn't have to be first. I guess Grafai or for Ridgeraf, sorry, could also use Calm Mind, but regardless, its main purpose would be baton passing that substitute to another Pokemon that could set up on you. And lastly, here, the choice that I made for the Pokemon that's not a normal type that translates into a normal type, it's not the most clean option here. Definitely not nearly as clean as some of the ones in the past, but it still tickles my brain in a way that I really like here. So we went back a couple of gyms for the sixth gym with Cyclizar, Grafaiai, Mousehold, and Passimian. Now, Passimian is a Pokemon that has always bewildered me as to why it is not a dual type Pokemon. It was introduced as a pair to Oranguru, and Oranguru is normal psychic. So in my head, I've always thought that Passimian should be some other type, whether it be fighting normal, fighting grass, fighting dark, fighting something, just to give it something unique about it. Um, but no, it's just pure fighting. So I made it now normal. Um, again, it's not the cleanest. Normal is one of those types, similar to Bug in the last video, where there's not a lot of Pokemon that could be mistaken for a normal type. Almost every normal type you look at is like, oh yeah, that's normal. Or if they give it normal, you might be kind of confused as to why it's normal. Like even Cyclozar definitely uh um what is his name? I just had it earlier in the presentation. Uh um I'm sorry, I need to go back real quick here. Yeah, there it is. Heliolisk. Yeah, Heliolisk. I don't really know why Heliolisk is normal, but it is. Um, but Passimian just feels like one of those Pokemon that could easily pass as normal. So I made it normal type. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know down below what you thought about this video. Were there any normal types you felt I missed? Any Pokemon that I made aces that shouldn't have been, or any Pokemon that uh, definitely should have been aces if they were, switched around gym position, or any that I just, completely disregarded as ace potential? Yeah, please let me down below. I intend to make one of these videos for every single type, and I'm I'm just gonna keep plugging away until I complete that goal. So I want to continue improving these videos and and making them to as high quality as I can. So any feedback, any comments, you know, anything that you want to leave down below is greatly appreciated. So with all that, we will see you all next time.